Philadelphia. Welcome to your Music, Dance, and Modern Arts show. This week we have Ashley Smith, a wonderful photographer from the Wide-Eyed Studios. We're going to feature her story on the show this week, and we hope you enjoy it.
All along, you were there to light the winding road back to my soul. What's in store for us is better. You and me, together we could do anything. This song, but you hold on tight and dance a lover's dance for an endless. Cause your wide eyes make everything worth it, and your skin takes me back to when just a boy, when I believed that love would always mean joy. You and me, together we could do anything. It's not about the past, though we remember what's in store.
Hello and welcome to Philadelphia Music, Dance, and Modern Arts show. I'm your host, Ray Ray, and today I'm here with one of Philly's best photographers, Ashley Smith. Ashley, would you like to say hello?
Hey guys, great to be here.
Ashley, could you tell us what brought you into the world of photography? How did you start, and tell us a little bit about your passion of photographs?
Absolutely. I actually came into photography a little backwards. I went to my undergrad out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania for anthropology, visual anthropology, and gender studies. And it was during that time I was doing a lot of traveling, a lot of visual work, studying people and communities, that I realized I was really frustrated with how words could describe big concepts like love or loss or beauty, things like that, and eventually found my way to a camera. I had never taken any photography classes, and at the end of my schooling decided, hey, there's got to be a better way to go about this, and got my master's in photojournalism, which led me into the world of documenting through visual media, which ended up being right up my alley, actually, because I sort of see the world through pictures, and I wanted to make memories and express things that other people couldn't see by capturing a single moment on film. It seemed so simple, so easy, so beautiful, and eventually found my way here to Philly, where I started at an internship at a local photography studio called JPG Photography, which has been a great apprenticeship really for me. I learned about how to run a small business, how to deal with all sorts of clients, and really was able to dive into the photographic world and see what really inspired me and what really made me tick. And it was real humans and their environments and the emotions that they had together as groups. And so I just sort of fell into shooting everything I could get my hands on, anything anyone would let me photograph. And it's led me to my own studio this year. I opened Wide-Eyed Studios, which is my new Philadelphia business. And I've been loving it. It's been wonderful.
Okay, specifically, I mean, what is it that you really do love about photography? You mentioned that you like to take a still image and really make a benchmark of that time and that moment. Mm-hmm. Is there anything really that you would say that you really love? Like if you had to sum it up in words, as you said, that you know, words isn't exactly
tough, obviously.
Yeah, but you spoke very well right there. So what do you love about your photography?
I love telling a story. I love finding a way to translate a big emotion into all different cultures, like wedding photography, for instance, which is really my bread and butter right now. They're, you know, in an artist world where everything is last minute and you never really know what's coming up. Weddings you can schedule way far in advance. So it's sort of nice for an artist to have a lot of different things lined up in the future, so you can also work in your art in the meantime. And weddings really inspired me because at first it just seemed like the same tradition over and over again, but then I realized that was the important part. All over the world, all through time, people have fallen in love and paired up and brought their families together to create a whole new world. And each wedding that I go to is so completely different. The people who are there, the way they love each other, the relationships, even between different generations, it's so beautiful. And it seems like something that's actually important to give somebody. I mean, at the end of the wedding day, maybe you have some cake, maybe you keep your dress, you know, in the closet, but it's those pictures that will create your world for you. They really inform you, inform future generations, your children, your grandchildren, about who you really were. And I got frustrated that, you know, pictures of my grandparents, for instance, are just all these sort of Farmer John pictures where they go, you know, and that doesn't really tell you anything about a person. And so what I really love is getting an image where there's something real in the image. Something like, for instance, I photographed this one girl sitting next to her grandmother laughing, and they look exactly the same. You know that those people are family, that they love each other, and that they share something really special that maybe they can't describe in words. And I know that she really values that image, and it's something that will, I think, bring her a lot of warmth and happiness through life, not just a product like, hey, here's a great t-shirt, or, you know, here's a great new technological toy, but here's a memory.
And memories are very, very valuable to all of us as human beings. I mean, you understand
Absolutely.
that as an anthropologist major, anyway.
Yes.
Do you keep in touch with any of the family still that you've met professionally?
Absolutely. I actually really believe in connecting personally with people. I don't really want to be a wedding mill. I'd like to have just a few weddings every year that lead me to relationships with these people and their families and their communities, because the more people are used to the way I come in and shoot, the way I move through the room, the more comfortable they are with being real in front of me. It's quite hard to get people to forget you and yet accept you into a very private moment in their life. For instance, you know, maybe a mom is pinning the earrings on her daughter right before she goes to get married, and they both have this really important moment. No words are spoken, but maybe they just look at each other, and that look carries so much information that I find mostly families, couples come back to me again and again to form a relationship with me because they like the way I've created a memory for them and want to make more and continue filling their life with sort of showing off the joy of what goes on with them. So they'll frequently call me for babies, births, families, pets. I go to a lot of their jobs later on and do office parties, headshots. I get involved in their social lives, photograph their favorite parties and their artistic creations on their own right, and sort of become a family photographer. And I'd much rather do that and make lasting relationships and really connect with people than just sort of have a couple one-off successes. It makes for much better pictures and a much better experience for both the people being photographed and myself.
I agree. You're part of a community, their family, and
Absolutely.
such. And I would love to see some of the pet pictures.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure they're pretty good. Ashley sent me a bunch of pictures actually, and she labeled them good grief, good karma, good vibes, good lovin', and travel, which was Ashley's adventures. Could you tell us a little bit more about why you distinguish the art and the pictures in that fashion?
Absolutely. I think one thing that happens is a lot of photographers get stuck in a niche like wedding photography, but it's not what brings them joy. And so they have a website that says, you know, wedding, photojournalism, and then they'll have a small drop down with a few baby shots or a few family things and say, oh, I do this also. But that art of theirs isn't taken as seriously, whereas I really love all different avenues. The anthropologist in me wants to sort of gather as many different experiences as possible. And so by having the sites separated, I try to give each of the subjects the attention they're due. So for instance, if a nonprofit that's affiliated with a church, for instance, comes to look at my work and see if I'm the right photographer for them, they don't necessarily just see wedding images, or even, for instance, I do boudoir, which sometimes has scantily clad ladies. And that's not really what you want to see if you're a charity. You want to see that this person that you're going to spend money on to make an image.
I do. Yes.
Well, right. If they connect, excellent. It's nice because I think it makes the subjects feel as if they're going to be important and significant and be focused on, and not sort of be some sort of side project. Whereas really I'd like people to get to know me as a vision, a person who sees things in a certain way and is willing to hire me for all sorts of things that they wouldn't necessarily think of. For instance, a girl who I'd done headshots for and done a wedding for her friend, her family had a farm that had been in their family for like 4 generations, and they finally were at the point where they had to sell the farm. And she said to me, you know, Ashley, this is such a part of my family and my family's history, it's going to be gone soon, and we really don't have any way to remember it. And she asked me to go and photograph her family just living their lives, milking the cows, going out to the field. And they're quiet pictures, you know, they're not flamboyant or super action filled, but they're beautiful memories that I think that family will really cherish. And so by separating out all my topics, I'm trying to say, look, all of these things are really important to me, and so whatever is important to you, you know, come see how I actually treat those subjects and not just look at a little, you know, side folder.
Right. Those pictures are real, and,
Yes.
and they convey real feelings and real life, which is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
You have to have a good eye for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of eyes, what do you use as your technological eye? What kind of camera or equipment do you use? What would you suggest for somebody new coming into photography? What would you suggest for them to use?
Absolutely. It's funny because I didn't think of myself as a photographer for a long time. I actually learned on disposable cameras in my room, taking self-portraits in the MySpace generation and taking pictures of things on my desk, and it just helped me start to look. That's the most important thing. So it doesn't matter if you're using Instagram, your iPhone camera, a little disposable, a point and click that your mom got you. It doesn't really matter. It's just starting to see the world and look for what's out there. So eventually, once I started my master's, I got involved in Canon because that's what my school had to offer. I have worked with Nikon really at the highest level. There's not a lot of difference, but I prefer Canon equipment because the lenses see a little warmer. For instance, things are a little more golden when you take the photo. They're a little more creamy, that sort of thing. But I have 2 or 3 camera bodies that I keep. It's always good to have backups. You never want to be able to go somewhere and have your gear fail because that's your whole job. So I have a number of bodies, and then I carry between 3 to 6 lenses that are all different focal lengths, and I use for different feelings, that sort of thing. I have a number of flashes. I have off-camera lighting that I use as well for a lot of theater work, headshots, anything that I want to add a little pop to make it a little more theatrical and dramatic. I love natural light, and that's the easiest way to learn, I think, but eventually you just have to start shooting what you think is beautiful, and you'll see a pattern, you know? So just keep shooting and get whatever gear you can. If you are a little more than an amateur and want to get a little bit better, I'd say switch to something like a Canon Rebel or a 40D, because you're able to change out lenses, and that's the biggest difference between an amateur photographer and a professional photographer. They're able to give you a whole level of diversity to your images that you can't get when you're just zooming in and out.
Okay, excellent. For our viewers at home, that was a great lesson for you. Just learn to develop your eye. Take pictures with whatever you have. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to just dive in and be creative. And also for our crew members, we were actually discussing technology a little bit earlier, the Sony, Canon, Nikon difference, and it seems like Canon's the right choice for our crew members out there who like Canon, our floor manager especially.
It's always a big discussion.
Okay, so you led us into the next question. Actually, you must have read my mind. The difference in lenses when I took shots of you at a photo shoot. You use different lenses. What is the purpose of the lenses? You mentioned color. What other things do you use the different lenses for?
Absolutely. When I first started photography, there's sort of a misunderstanding that you use a different lens because you're a different distance from people. Truthfully, you can use any lenses from most distances. The question is, what are you trying to say with the photo? So, for instance, with a wide lens, which I tend to use a lot of wide-eyed studios, I named it that way partly because I have big eyes, but partly because I love seeing the whole bit of the world. You can include so much more information about the environment, about the storytelling aspects, rather than focusing in really tight on someone's face. So I often get up close to my subjects. That's one of the reasons why I like to get people used to me, so that I can move in closely and not have them suddenly be like, oh, the camera's right there, okay. But when I move close, the edges of the lens bend what you see. So if you think about fisheye, you see things that are really pulled out. It gives a whimsical feeling. It gives a feeling that things are moving a lot more, whereas when you use a really long lens and stand very far back, you have more of a compressed image, something that deepens the background, so you get sort of fuzzy trees in the background if you want it. It's great for cities. It's great for portraits because you get beautiful close images of things, but you can use a long lens and stand back even further and get a wide shot that's still very compressed, but that feels a lot more architectural, a lot more stiff to me, so I often tend to go with some of those wider lenses. Lenses can also help you in situations where the lighting is dim. There's something called aperture, which allows for the depth of field, how sharp it is. So is it just this mic that's sharp? Is it the mic and you that's sharp? Is it the whole background that's sharp? And that can really help you accent what you want the person to pay attention to. For instance, if you're a singer and you're doing a really great head bang or whatever, to focus in real close on your mouth moving or your hair flipping can tell the audience, the people looking at the image, a lot about a tone, a feeling, an emotion, rather than just, well, did I get it all in the frame? So when I shoot, I often shoot with 2 camera bodies, so I can have 2 different lenses on at once and very quickly move from one to the other. And you photographed me or shot me during a shoot at the Hedgerow Theatre, which was a lot of kids running around the stage. You never really know where they're going to be, so for me it allows me to really quickly, if someone suddenly runs at me, be able to pick up a different lens and still capture that moment and not lose it by having to go back and get a new lens.
Right, excellent. Do you ever use traditional methods? The black room with the black light. Do you go back to old school, or are you just all digital?
Yeah, old school is beautiful. There's no replacement for it. But the truth is, by the time I picked up a camera and considered it as a profession, I was already so far in my education that I really didn't have time to go backwards. And for what I wanted to do, which is not high art, I really have to be able to transmit things quickly. I can't spend a ton of money, ton of time on darkroom materials, film, if you think about even reliability at a wedding. I've heard so many horror stories about people who thought they'd go vintage and hire a film photographer, and then something happens to the film, it gets exposed to light, there's something wrong with the camera, and you just lose everything. Whereas I have a number of memory cards, I have multiple bodies, I have all different ways to back myself up, so there's no chance that anything can go wrong, because I really have to produce something for my clients. I think traditional darkroom non-digital photography is beautiful, especially Ansel Adams. I mean, you can't say that Ansel Adams should have used a digital camera. In fact, I don't think his type of work would have been possible actually on digital. But unless you're in a niche, an art niche, really digital is the easiest thing, because news, corresponders, magazines, even the people you're trying to give your photos to, most people, even if they want prints eventually, want the digital file so that they can do something with it quickly.
Okay, and that actually brings up another good point that I want to share with the audience. Is another discussion we were having today is the cheapness, and not cheap, but it doesn't cost much to enter the market. It doesn't cost much to learn how to be creative and use computers and technology in your favor, whereas years ago it would have cost you a tremendous amount of money. So if you feel creative, it doesn't cost you a lot to get into the market and do something wonderful for the world. So what technology do you use with regards to post-edit and After Effects? Do you use something like Photoshop? What software do you use, and what would you suggest for our audience?
Absolutely. Photoshop is a wonderful thing. It can do pretty much anything you could want, but what Photoshop does is it alters the photo, what's actually in the photo, rather than just changing color or light or that sort of thing. And I consider myself a photojournalist, which means I'm not going in and creating something out of multiple pieces. Instead, I'm trying to capture what's really there and just enhance it so that you get the best representation of it. So when I come home, I copy all my cards, I make multiple backups, always use a hard drive.
Very good lesson, very good lesson. Always backup.
Once you learn that one the hard way, you'll never do it again. And I have a big Apple computer, because they've got just beautiful visuals, and I use Lightroom, which is my favorite tool for both organizing images. We call it culling. When you go through, in a wedding I may have 5,000 images and then another 3,000 from my second shooter. So I need a way that can easily, quickly go through and mark images as, good, bad, keep, definitely, blog image. So it's easy to mark up your images without having to, like in the old days, literally copy the image, move it to another folder, and etc. So Lightroom helps you first organize and make collections, and then it has a really great tool base that helps you do everything that you could possibly need to, short of physically changing what's in the photo, like taking out a human being. So I do a lot with contrast, lighting, a little bit of tone, that sort of things, just so that I'm pulling out the best in the image. Obviously you try to get it right on the camera, but occasionally, just like with video, you need post-production, you need to, up the greens a little, fix the sky a little, but it's a really efficient program that's pretty user-friendly once you kind of get into it, and can really help you do almost anything with your images.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to ask you some of the personal questions now. You mentioned some things that inspire you, and that's just pictures and memories and stuff like that. Could you remember the best shoot that you ever had, and could you share that with us?
That's a pretty tough one, actually. I'd been thinking about that beforehand. I'm pretty lucky with the kinds of jobs people ask me to do. I get to travel a lot. When I was little, actually, I used to say I don't care what my profession is, as long as I get to make my own hours, be creative, and travel. And somehow I found my way to that, so I feel pretty good about that. I get to go to a lot of fun places too, because especially with my weddings and engagement shoots, I want people to go somewhere that means something to them, that they have memories, that's new to me often. So I've gotten to see a lot of the East Coast. Notably, I got to take my cameras to Six Flags and go on the rides with my cameras, which was terrifying and wonderful all at the same time. But I think my favorite trip this year was I got taken to Oregon to do a wedding on a pear farm. And the couple is a really artsy couple from LA, and they said, you know, why don't you come out? It's a beautiful area, and just stay the week at our house. So I arrived with my second shooter, Tracy, and the house was built by the guy who drew Disney's Fantasia. So it's this bizarre, you know, interesting house in the middle of nowhere in Oregon on a pear farm. And the wedding itself was really great. The woman made her own dress, or had a friend make her dress, and it was just lovely. But we chose to stay a number of more days. And I said to my coworker, I said, you know, why don't we just rent a car and travel? And that's one of my favorite things, that people bring me to a new location, and then I get the opportunity to go and explore it through my camera. So we took a trip down to Crater Lake in Oregon, which was unbelievable, and we drove down to California through the Redwood Forest, and it really became sort of a nature, Ashley's Adventures, travel type of a thing. And I think doing things that inspire you like that, pairing up jobs that you do get paid for, but how, you know, use them to help you also go and do something that's really unusual and inspiring as an artist. It really keeps me fresh. It keeps me excited about doing what I'm doing, rather than feeling like it's the same old thing day after day. So that trip was really beautiful, because I really felt like, you know, I had just started my own business. I was off doing exactly what I wanted to do, and the people I was with were wonderful, and it just couldn't have been a better trip.
Okay, excellent. And, you know, you speak about inspiration. Is there anybody specifically out there that does inspire you? Ansel Adams, you mentioned. Any other big names, or they don't have to be photographers, just anybody in general? Yeah. Parents, maybe, I don't know.
It's funny, because I didn't really start as a photographer. I didn't grow up looking at other photographers. If anyone, it would be Edward Curtis, who I did my undergrad thesis on. He went around in the 1900s and photographed all the Native American groups across the U.S. in these beautiful, rich portraits, and carried all this huge gear. And he was really inspiring to me, even though he kind of fudged his ethnographic duties and faked some of the photos. The fact that he said to himself, you know, this is what I want to do. I see these people as being beautiful, and I want to make sure that we have documentation of these beautiful cultures. And spent 40 years of his life trekking around with backpacks on mules to, you know, just to capture these little images of reality all across the U.S. I thought that was so wonderful, especially at a time when you barely had trains, you know, taking you anywhere. So he was a big inspiration, and really, I've had a lot of artistic friends who over the years we've encouraged each other to go and do our own thing, and it's almost more inspirational to see the real people that I've known take steps in their own life to go do their own amazing artistic projects. And really, it's those people who inspire me a lot.
Excellent, excellent. So if our audience wants to learn more about you, see some more of your pictures, get to know you, where could they find out more about you?
Absolutely. I have a main site that you can go to. It's wideeyedstudios.com. You can also Google it. And when you get there, it's a launch page. So it'll take you to 4 or 5 different site options. You can go to Good Loving, Good Karma, any of those things. And those are topic sites. So for instance, Good Loving is where you can go if you're in love, frankly. Engagements, weddings, unions, boudoir, all sorts of things that have to do with that. Good Grief is children, family, pets. Good Karma is all my nonprofit photojournalism work. And Good Vibes is theater, art, headshots, music. My fiance is a musician, so I spend a lot of time in that world. And Ashley's Adventure simply is anything else that I do, because, you know, life isn't just about the things you get paid to do. It's really about the things that you need to do and need to do for yourself. And so that's sort of my forum to say, hey, this is all the rest of the stuff I do with my free time in between. I can't put my camera down.
Thank you so much, Ashley Smith, for being with us today on the Philadelphia Music, Dance, and Modern Art Show. We appreciate you guys watching, and check us out next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.